Hello, children. How are you all? I hope everyone is safe and fine. We have learned in our previous lesson, we have learned how the British conquered all our India. Exactly. The British has conquered the whole India for their trading. They visited India for the trading purpose, and they occupied the whole, they conquered the whole country. But there were some good things which were made by the British. They have introduced the education to the Indians. The, the British policies were affecting Indian kings, peasants, tribes, etc. They had aim of not only gaining power over the Indian territories, but also they wanted to educate Indians and to make them civilized. As they established themselves, they felt that they had to change the culture and traditions followed by the Indians. They felt that Indians had to be civilized and educated so that they would be better. The English East India Company wielded power over Indian territory from 1612 to 1858. Now, let us know in this chapter how the British has introduced the education and what are the policies introduced by them and what were the who were the people revolted against him and who were not happy with the new education system. So now I'm going to explain you the lesson civilizing the native and educating the nation. How the British saw education, what the British thought about our education system, and how the Indians reacted to the idea of education which Britishers wanted to introduce in India. William Jones. In 1783, William Jones was appointed as a junior judge at the Supreme Court that was set up by the company in Kolkata. Sir William Jones, he was an Anglo-Welsh philologist and scholar of ancient India, particularly known for his proposition of the existence of a relationship among Indo-European languages. He was not only, in addition to being a lawyer, Jones was also a linguist. He knew many languages like Greek, Latin, French, and English. In Calcutta, he began spending time with Pandits who taught him Sanskrit language, grammar, and ancient texts on law, philosophy, politics, arithmetic, medicine, etc. He started studying ancient Indian books on law, philosophy, religion, politics. He discovered that his interests were shared by many British officials living in Kolkata at that time. Many other Englishmen, such as Henry Thomas Colebrook and Nathaniel Hallett, were also showing keen interest in ancient Indian heritage, just like Jones. They were also translating Sanskrit and Persian works into English. Jones, together with Colebrook and Hallett, formed the Asiatic Society of Bengal and also started a journal called Asiatic Researchers. The Asiatic Society of Bengal was founded by the renowned English jurist Sir William Jones. The members of the Asiatic Society of Bengal were the first European scholars to recognize the common ancestry of Sanskrit with Greek, Latin, and other European languages. They considered Sanskrit as the classical language of India and praised its wonderful structure and stated that it was more perfect than the Greek. So in the pictures, you can see the Asiatic Society of Bengal building and this is the logo of Asiatic Researchers Journal. Jones and Colebrook had a deep respect for ancient culture of both India and the West. According to them, the Indian civilization had a glorious past, which had subsequently declined. To understand India better, they decided to study the sacred and legal text of India. These texts could serve as the basis for the future development of India. So they decided to study ancient texts which would help Indians understand their lost glory and also help British to become the guardians of Indian culture as well as their masters. Many company officials supported this idea and also encouraged the building of institutions which promoted learning of ancient Indian texts. They also believed that Hindus and Muslims should be taught those subjects that were familiar to them and not the unfamiliar subjects. They felt that institutions should be set up to encourage the study of ancient Indian texts and teach Sanskrit and Persian literature and poetry. The British hoped to win a place in the hearts of the native Indians by teaching them the languages they were familiar with. With this objective, a madarasa was set up in Calcutta in the year 1781 for promoting the study of Arabic, Persian, and Islamic law. And the Hindu College was set up in Benares in the year 1791 to encourage the study of Sanskrit text. But some officers were not in favor of the Orientalists. So they were their strong opponents. Many officials started criticizing the concept of teaching Indians the Sanskrit and Arabic literature because they thought that Eastern literature was non serious and full of flaws. James Mill was one of those who attacked the Orientalists. He declared that the British should make Indians familiar with the scientific and technical advances that the West had made and not the poetry and the sacred literature. The aim of education was not to please anyone or just to win a place in their. In the 1830s, the criticism against the Orientalists grew stronger. One such critic was Thomas Babington Macaulay. According to him, India was an uncivilized country and needed to be civilized. He was a 19th century British poet and historian. He wrote extensively on British history. He was appointed as the first law member of the Governor General's Council. He served in India on the Supreme Council of India between 1834 to 1838. He was instrumental in creating the foundations of bilingual colonial India by convincing the Governor General to adopt English as the medium of instruction in higher education from the sixth year of schooling onwards rather than Sanskrit or Arabic. No branch of Eastern knowledge could be compared to what England had produced. Macaulay had declared that who could deny that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India, Indian, and Arabian. He requested the British government to stop wasting money on Oriental learning. He asserted the need for teaching English to the Indians as this would enable them to read Western science, philosophy, and finest literature of the world. Following Macaulay's suggestions, the English Education Act of 1835 was introduced. The decision of making English as a medium of instruction for higher education was taken. The Sanskrit College and Calcutta madarasa were seen as temples of darkness in order to stop the promotion of Oriental learning. So, as the English was made as the main language for as the main medium of instruction for the high school, now the people now the British were into the education for commerce, means they wanted to educate the Indians for the trade. In 1854, the Court of Directors of the East India Company in London sent an educational dispatch which was sent to the Governor General of India. This also emphasized on European learning and opposed Oriental learning. It also laid emphasis on the learning of economics, as it would enable Indians to understand the importance of expansion of trade and commerce. This would lead to the development of our country's resources. Introducing Indians to the European ways of life would result in the demand for British goods, as their taste and preferences would be changed. Wood's dispatch also stressed that European education would generate some good qualities in Indians, such as honesty and truthfulness. This in return would supply Britishers with good civil servants who would be trustworthy. As per the dispatch, many new steps were taken. Education departments were set up to take control over all the educational matters. Universities were established in Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay, though a revolt was faced in Meerut and Delhi in the year 1857. Attempts were made to bring changes in the school education system. So, while these steps were taken by the Britishers to bring changes in the education system, what happened to the local schools? Do you know how children were taught before Britishers came to India? And if there were some schools before British era, how they used to be and what happened to them? Let's see what the report of William Adams says about this. In 1830s, a Scottish missionary named William Adam was asked by the company to prepare a report on the progress of education in vernacular schools. Adam reported that there are there were over 1 lakh pathshalas in Bengal and Bihar. These were small schools with students generally around 20, but the total number of students in these pathshalas was over 20 lakh. These schools were basically set up by the wealthy people or by the community, even sometimes a teacher, guru. They were the schools with flexible education system, such as there were no blackboards, books, building, furniture, etc. At some places, classes were held under a tree, at the corner of a shop, temple, or at the guru's home. There were no separate classrooms or roll calls. All students sat together. The teacher used to interact separately with the students, having different levels of learning. There was no annual examination or timetable. Fee was also fee was also received according to the status of the pupil's family. This flexible system was suitable to the local needs. For example, there were no classes during the harvest season, as rural children had to work in the fields. The pathshalas commenced after the crops had been cut, in order to facilitate even the children of the peasant family. Earlier, the company was only concerned about the higher education. Therefore, it was not interfering in the functioning of local pathshalas. But after 1854, the company took a decision to improve these schools. Pandits were appointed as in charge to look after 4 to 5 schools. The job of the Pandit was to visit the Pathshala and improve the education system. Some rules were some new features were introduced, such as teaching now was to be based on the textbooks. Annual examination was to be conducted. Students were asked to pay the students were asked to pay the regular fee. Gurus were asked to submit periodic report and take classes as per timetable. Students were asked to attend regular classes, sit at a fixed place, and obey the rules. Government grants were given to those pathshalas which accepted the rules, and there were no grants for the schools that did not comply with the rules. But it had some drawbacks also. Gurus who wanted to retain their independence found it difficult to compete with government aided regulated pathshalas. Children of peasants found it difficult to attend school regularly during harvest season. So now we know both the benefits and drawbacks of the regulated pathshalas. Now we will discuss the agenda for a national education. Britishers were not the only one to think about education in India, but there were many Indian thinkers who wanted to introduce Western education in India because they wanted India to develop like the Western countries. So they urged the British to open more schools and colleges in India. On the other hand, people like Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi opposed the system of Western education. So let's see what are their views. Mahatma Gandhi said that the Western education was like a poison as it had developed a feeling of inferiority among Indians. It had destroyed the sense of pride for our own culture. And not only this, Indians who got educated from these institutions appreciated the British rule in India. Gandhi wanted the education system which could bring back the sense of dignity among Indians. Gandhi also felt the need of having local language as a medium of instruction, as the English medium was alienating the youth from their own language and culture. The English education was unable to relate itself with the local masses. According to Mahatma Gandhi, Western education system only focused on reading and writing, whereas stress should be given on the practical learning in which one uses his skills and practical knowledge as it led to the development of the mind and the capacity to understand. As the nationalist thought grew stronger, many other thinkers also supported the system of national education, which was different from the British education system. Now, let's see what Tagore used to think of education system. Rabindranath Tagore started an institution named Shantiniketan in 1901, and he opened an air school there for children named Pad Bhavan. During his childhood, Tagore hated going to school. To him, school appeared like a prison as he was not free to do what he wanted to. The experience of his school life in Calcutta resulted in a new idea of education known as Tagore's idea of education. So he decided to set up a school where a child was happy, free, and creative. He or she should explore his or her own thoughts. According to him, childhood is the time of self-learning. The rigidity of the schools can destroy the creativity of the child. The duty of the teacher is to understand the child and help develop his curiosity. According to Tagore, creative learning could be encouraged only in a natural environment. So, he set up a school which was 100 kilometers away from Calcutta in a rural area. He named it Shantiniketan, where, while living in harmony with nature, the children could become creative. Though Mahatma Gandhi and Tagore shared similar views on education, but there were some differences also. Gandhiji was totally against the Western education system, but Tagore wanted to combine the best elements of both the education system. He emphasized on teaching science along with art, music, and dance. So, we can say that many individuals were thinking about the way of national education system could be designed. Some wanted changes within the education system set up by the Britishers and wanted to extend it to include more people. Others wanted and others wanted an alternative system to educate people in a truly natural culture. The debate on what national education system should be is still prevalent. Thank you, children. I will come up with a new session in the next video. Thank you.